Welcome officially to the Trinity Health IHA Medical Group Wednesday Wellness Series presentation, Managing Stress and Grief During the Holidays. Tonight's presenting providers are Elise McNulty, a behavioral health specialist working out of IHA Medical Group Primary Care Canton, and a manager for the IHA Medical Group Behavioral Health Collaborative Care Program. And our second presenter is Jill Ratajczak. She is also a behavioral health specialist working out of IHA Medical Group in primary care in Plymouth. Welcome, Jill and Elise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here. So I don't know if Allison was going to say anything else, but I guess we'll go ahead and get started since it is right at 7 o'clock.
Sorry to confuse. Yes, please kick it off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're midway through the first full week of December, and the holiday season is officially upon us. While we know that the holiday season can be a time that is filled with traditions and family and friends, parties, baking, lots of warm, fuzzy feelings, it can also be a time that is filled with lots of decisions, time commitments, pressures to spend money, do all the things, and an overwhelming burden to make everything magical. When we look at the big picture, this season really is a short one, 1 to 2 months at most, and we certainly make the most of those months by cramming in as much as we can. Stress and the holiday season have become so commonplace, the two words are almost synonymous. While we often use sarcasm and jokes to make light of this stress, the stress and emotion that comes with the holidays are very real and really feel far from comical. At the same time that we're experiencing this stress, the overwhelming message around us is that we should be feeling jolly and joyful. Back in 2006, the American Psychological Association did a study which looked at stress specifically during this holiday season, and the findings validated what we already know. People experience negative emotions and symptoms of stress during this time of year. Greater than 50% of the people involved in this study reported feelings of stress, fatigue, and irritability, while other emotions that were mentioned were sadness, anger, and even loneliness. When we ignore the facts and don't acknowledge these feelings and the realness of this stress, we're really only creating more pressure and burdens for ourselves and the people around us. So similar to the poll that the APA did, the University of Michigan did a more recent poll. So this is from 2021, and they talked to parents specifically on their experience during the holidays. 1 in 6 of the parents who were polled rated their stress level as high during the season. Again, that's no surprise, right? You can see that some of the top stressors identified were things like shopping, extra things to do, keeping families healthy and safe. We know that especially since 2020, that's been kind of on the top of the list. Managing the financial burden that comes with the holidays, planning events and preparing special meals. And again, you know, that conflict and criticism that comes from family members over how and with whom to spend the holidays. That's probably something that's always been stressful, but certainly something that has increased over the last couple of years while we've kind of faced this pandemic and the extra that it's brought. So when we look at that APA study from 2006, they found that while both women and men experience increased stress levels during the holidays, women in particular end up shouldering a large amount of that burden. The more recent study from U of M also showed that mothers are 2 times as likely to experience increased stress during this time when they compared that level to the fathers. This is no surprise. Women are more likely to be the ones who are doing the holiday shopping, gift planning, planning and executing of events and parties, organizing activities for family participation. This is all in addition to the responsibilities that women are already carrying out in their normal day-to-day lives. the end of the day, when we're looking for a moment of silence or rest, we can find ourselves sitting down for a nice, relaxing scroll through social media. And you don't have to scroll far to be inundated with photos and scenes filled with what others are buying, decorating, and doing. Although we know that these are often not an accurate depiction, without even being conscious of it, we're comparing our own situations and experiences to what we see around us. We feel pressured to keep up with what others are doing, as well as guilty and sad if we're not able to do or buy in the same amounts. This moment that was intended for rest and relaxation can quickly turn to more stress and anxious feelings. And I love the elf on the shelf pictures here, because I know as a mom, this is something that kind of comes with a lot of pressure, and you see a lot of that on social media. As our world has changed in countless ways since 2020, so too has the way that we approach the holiday season. The COVID pandemic has brought with it many new holiday stressors, pressures about how to gather safely, which includes varying perspective amongst family and friends, as well as worry about family members and ourselves being isolated or lonely when gathering safely isn't an option. There have been so many additional factors and variables that have been added to the planning and executing of events since COVID entered our lives that even just a simple gathering can become quite stressful and very complex. Additionally, many of us have faced multiple losses in these last few years. Losses can come in many forms: loss of people, jobs, even our sense of safety and security. Missing a loved one who is now absent from a gathering, various financial burdens, maybe due to job loss or changes, feeling worried or unsafe, even within your own community. The holidays can be crowded with reminders of these losses, making grief really a unique stressor around this time of year. It can feel difficult to find a space which feels safe to express and process this grief, especially during a time that's expected to be happy and celebratory. It can feel difficult to feel those emotions and not feel pressured to be happy and joyful and, in the party mood. So when we think about all of these things we're trying to navigate and manage during this time, what are some of the ways that our bodies might be telling us that we're stressed? These might be things like feeling more irritable, edgy, wound up. Maybe feeling like you have less interest in the things that you might normally look forward to or enjoy, especially around this time of year. And kind of on the other piece of that, also maybe not enjoying the things when you are doing them, feeling like you're just going through the motions. You might find that you're having a difficult time with sleep. Maybe you're noticing that you're struggling with turning your brain off to get to sleep. You're waking up frequently, or on the opposite end of that, you just want to stay in bed and sleep all the time. That can also be complicated by seasonal changes that are happening this time of year. It's darker, we want to sleep more. A feeling of having less energy, struggling to get through the days, feeling tension or a sense of clenching in your body, difficulty concentrating or focusing on things, a desire to isolate, avoiding spending time with others, not wanting to talk to other people, not wanting to pick up the phone, not wanting to go out and see others. New or more frequent headaches. Oftentimes this is a result of kind of that increased stress and tension. When we are tense, we tend to take our shoulders up here by our ears and hold them there, or clench our jaws, and our body feels that. And then also new or worsening anxiety. So, if anxiety maybe is already kind of part of your existing day-to-day, you might see an increase in that. Or maybe that's something that you just feel around this time of year. Well, we can acknowledge that increased stress, grief, and anxiety can be normal during this time, and also manage with at-home tools and supports. We also want to be clear, if at any time these thoughts or feelings are overwhelming, or they're getting in the way of your day-to-day functioning, We really encourage you to reach out to your primary care providers to discuss options for professional support and or treatment. And you can kind of talk with your doctor about what the options are and what that might look like. Of course, a plug here, IHA Medical Group offers behavioral health support at most of our adult primary care locations. If this is something you feel like you might benefit from, or you have questions or want to talk with your doctor about it, reach out. Ask your PCP what the options are, make an appointment to discuss. You can even send a MyChart message if you're active on the portal. So we know that if those feelings are overwhelming, we want you to reach out to your doctor. And we also want to be clear that any thoughts of suicide, not wanting to be alive anymore, or harming oneself should definitely be taken seriously and addressed more urgently by accessing your nearest emergency department or calling 988. Feelings you might notice about yourself or someone else who might be thinking of suicide are things such as a desire or wanting to die, feeling of being a burden to others, extreme sadness that might feel unbearable, hopelessness. Behaviors you might notice in yourself or others who are thinking of suicide are things such as making plans or researching ways to die, saying goodbyes and or giving away important or prized possessions, taking dangerous risks, or displaying really extreme mood swings. We want to note that it's okay to ask someone if they're feeling this way. Asking about suicide or suicidal thoughts does not increase the chances or likelihood that someone may act on these thoughts. In fact, the research and evidence shows actually the contrary. The more we can talk about and acknowledge those thoughts and feelings, there becomes a decrease in suicidal ideation. Absolutely, talk about it, encourage others to talk about it, ask people. It doesn't have to be a secret or silent topic. It's no secret that turning to food or alcohol can be coping mechanisms when we're feeling overwhelmed. These two tools also just happen to be found in abundance during this holiday season, which makes it no surprise that these appeared in the top numbers for ways that people are managing stress. We know that when we use these tools for coping, they provide quick relief and lots of soothing feelings. Ultimately, we're creating more stress down the road for ourselves.
And the good thing is, it can be different. So when stress is at its peak, it can be hard to stop and regroup. Having some ideas about how to cope ahead of time can help, especially if the holidays have taken an emotional toll on you in the past. So we've compiled some practical tips to help minimize the stress that accompanies the holidays. You might even end up enjoying the holidays more than you thought you could. Elise, are you moving? Okay. Tip number 1, acknowledge your feelings. If you've experienced a loss, can't be together with loved ones, or you're just plain overwhelmed, it's okay to take time to express your feelings. All of this is completely normal. And yes, everyone else is feeling this way too. They may just not be saying it out loud. Stress and grief can exist alongside joy and celebration. And I'm going to read that again because it's a pretty powerful statement. Stress and grief can exist alongside joy and celebration. So giving yourself the permission to feel whatever you're feeling. Or as the behavioral health specialists always say, feel the feels. Tip number 2, setting boundaries. Really, really important. Not always easy to do. So a few quick tips. So first, listen to yourself. Really 2 questions. You see them there. What do I need? And what's my capacity? And really taking to heart to think, what am I capable of doing right now? How much can I give? Also setting limits, giving yourself permission to not do all the things. In the picture before, when Elise had all the elf on the shelf up, you can skip that along with that cookie exchange this year, especially if it feels like one more thing you have to squeeze into an already overwhelming schedule. And saying yes when you should say no can leave you feeling overwhelmed, resentful. And guess what? If you say no, those people will still like you. Be realistic. The holidays don't have to be perfect or even resemble anything like previous years. Choose which traditions you'd like to hold on to and be open to creating those new ones. Also, schedule in time for yourself, even if it's in the bathroom with the door locked. 15 minutes alone, doing a little bit of deep breathing may be refreshing enough to handle everything on your task list. And again, sticking to a budget. So making a plan of what you want to spend and then challenging yourself to stick to it. And I really like the little quote there. You get to celebrate your holidays when and where and how is best for you, even if people you love will be disappointed or angry. They will still love you. They may be mad, but they'll still love you. Tip number 3, keep up with your healthy habits. It's okay to enjoy the extras that come with the holidays. And you don't have to let the holidays become a free-for-all. Overindulgence can add to the stress and the grief. Keep making time for things you've already been doing to manage everyday stressors. Do the good things, exercise, relaxation, journaling, meeting with your therapist or behavioral health specialist. Also, continue making the choices that are right for you. Staying well hydrated, and continue your great sleep hygiene habits. Tip number 4, reaching out, really important. So asking for help, delegating responsibilities when possible, getting kids involved, maybe having them wrap the gifts, using grocery delivery service if that's accessible to you. And if you're feeling lonely and isolated, seek out community or other social events. Many organizations have websites, online support groups, and virtual events that can offer a sense of support and companionship. And I'm going to do a little plug here for IHA Behavioral Health Group. They do offer a holiday stress virtual support group, which takes place on December 13th at 4 and December 20th at 4. And that information can be found on the Facebook website, I believe. That's where I found it. Also, volunteering your time, doing something to help others in a way that aligns with your values is also a good way to lift your spirits and broaden your relationships. And finally, seek professional help if you need it. Despite your best efforts, taking all of our tips into consideration, you may still find yourself feeling sad or anxious, unable to sleep, irritable, and overwhelmed. If this persists, talk with your primary care doctor to discuss additional options for support. And tip number 5, mindfulness. So much of our holiday stress is rooted in thoughts of the past, future events. Mindfulness is a way to be present and aware of what's happening in the moment. So mindfulness is an evidence-based tool that can help reduce stress and anxiety. And this is the nice thing about mindfulness. It doesn't have to be a lengthy commitment. It can be practiced pretty much anywhere at any time. One way to practice mindfulness is to just to take a pause, be still, and use your senses. Notice what is in this moment. Another one of the most accessible ways to practice mindfulness is through breath work. Mindful breathing is a quick and easy way to ground yourself in the present moment and has been shown to be effective in reducing anxiety as well as negative thinking.
We have a little clip we're going to share with you. It's just like 3 minutes. And it's really just a quick guide on how to do some breathing, some mindful breathing. This is called box breathing. There's lots of different varieties of kind of how to do deep breathing and breath work. You can find those things via Google. This specific exercise is brought to us by Headspace. Headspace also has an app that has intentional relaxation exercises and meditations. There's actually lots of apps that have these, and we can share those in the resources that Allison sent out later this week.
Well, Elise, I don't think
To the present moment.
thank you.
Did you not hear? I think because I had myself muted, it didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start it over.
Okay, thanks.
With this technique,
Maybe.
box breathing is a great breathing exercise to help with our sense of focus and also to help ease the mind if you're feeling a bit anxious. The concentration on the counting of the breath helps to redirect and recenter the mind to the present moment. With this technique, we're taking slow, intentional deep breaths, calming the mind and relaxing the body. What we'll be doing in this exercise is breathing in through the nose for 4, holding the breath for 4, exhaling out through the mouth for 4, and holding the breath for 4 before we inhale again. And as always, taking everything I share as a suggestion or an invitation that you can say no to if it feels uncomfortable at any time. So sitting upright, shoulders relaxed, and just noticing how the mind and body feel before we begin. Breathing in through the nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out through the mouth for 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. One last time, breathing in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4. And then holding the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just gently exhaling out through the mouth, returning the breath back to its natural rhythm. Just taking a moment here to pause, and again, just noticing how the mind and body feel. I love using box breathing if I'm experiencing a sense of stress or anxiety, or if I can sense that my mind and body are a bit panicked. For example, I've used this technique before meetings or public speaking events because it can really help you to regain a sense of calm and clarity. So try this out and do as many rounds of this breath as you need.
So, like she said, this is something that really can be used anywhere. That's kind of what I love about the box breath. You can do this while you're driving. You can do this while you're sitting in the car before you go into that relative's house. You could do this while you're standing in line at the grocery store or sitting on your couch, even scrolling social media. I'll be honest, I did some box breathing before I logged on for this call today. It's a tool that you can just kind of carry with you in your pocket. It's very simple, it's accessible to everybody, and it helps. So we've talked a little bit about what kinds of things you can do for supporting yourself, managing your own stressors. We might also be looking to support others in our lives who we see or know are struggling. One of the most powerful things we can do for others is to just acknowledge that things are difficult, and that's okay. Talk openly with family and friends. Acknowledge that decisions about planning and how to gather are difficult, and that you respect whatever decisions they make about what is right for them and their family. If you find that you have some extra time or capacity, offer to do a chore or task for someone who you might know that might be especially burdened. Offer to plan events or get-togethers after the new year. This is a time when folks tend to have more time or availability in their schedules. Ask people what they want. Don't assume you know what's best for others. Ask people what they want. While we have good intentions, we want to offer care and support for those around us. We cannot assume that we know what they want or need. Check in with each other about what support looks like. I might be thinking I'm offering to support to somebody and they find that really annoying. Talk to each other about what that looks like. What do you need? Traditions can be either comforting or upsetting during a time when things are different. Check in with each other about that, especially if you're dealing with the loss of a loved one during this time. Have a conversation about kind of which end of that you want to go to. This time of year, it looks different for pretty much everybody since 2020. Have a conversation about, kind of what everyone's needs are and how you can maybe stick to the traditions that feel important and also maybe create some new things. Offer validation and support to family and friends who might be experiencing grief. And we talked about how grief can come in many forms. It's not necessarily just the loss of a person. We want to let people know that it's okay to be sad. Trying to cheer up someone who might be sad or grieving really only adds more pressure to an already difficult time. Some ideas for supporting these folks in your lives are to ask them what they need. Give them space and also let them know they're welcome regardless of how they're feeling. I included some graphics here that are from a website that's called Refuge in Grief. And this is created by Megan Devine, who is an author and also an expert on grief and how we treat it. These pictures show thoughts from real people who are experiencing grief and what they're thinking this time of year. And I know that some of this is small, so I'm going to do my best to zoom in on these while we talk about them. So in this first graphic, you can see that some things we say to grieving people can actually make the holidays feel worse. It's kind of what we've been saying throughout this presentation. Each person has their own way of getting through the season, and it may not look like you think it should. So you can see in these first few slides, I suppose, here, that you've got folks kind of talking to the person who looks like the grieving person, saying things like, don't be sad, he wouldn't want you to feel that way. just come out. You'll feel better if you get in the holiday spirits. I think this place needs a Christmas tree. And you can see the thoughts from the grieving folks are things like, of course I'm sad. I miss my husband, and I wish people would understand that being sad is okay. I wish people wouldn't force holiday activities on me. I don't really feel like celebrating. Being criticized for how I'm handling the holidays is the worst. Don't tell me I'm not being festive enough. That's the last thing you want to hear, right? When you're already feeling sad or down. Grieving people would love your help and support this holiday season. They know you're trying and that it's hard to see them in pain. So even though you can't make their holidays good, here's some ways that you might help. And again, these are thoughts from folks who are dealing with grief. This gentleman's bubble says, please talk about her, share a memory, say her name. Saying her name won't break me. I want to be reminded of her. It makes me feel connected to her and to you in this moment. Oftentimes we kind of shy away from bringing those things up. We don't want to feel like we were the reminder of that person. And the truth is that those people are already thinking about that. They don't need a reminder. It's already there. My brother's dying and I'm his caretaker. I want to be cared for, invited, and treated as gently as a grieving person because I already am one. I wish people would step up for my son, invite him to do something he would have done with his dad, a movie, fishing, anything. That would be a great gift. Would you ask me what might feel good to me this year rather than telling me what I should do? I might not know the answer, but I really appreciate being asked. I like when we raise a toast to those not present and say their names. It's sad, but it's real. Acknowledging who's missing really helps. I want to be invited to things, even if I most often decline. It means a lot to be invited. And I like the PS here. I like invitations to coffee or lunch more than for big parties. More than anything, I want to be able to tell the truth about how hard this is sometimes. Just hearing it without trying to fix it is the best gift you can give. So I hope that, kind of throughout some of these tips, we've talked about tools for managing your grief, your stress. And one of the things that we've said kind of over and over again is to just acknowledge it. Give space to those feelings, both for yourself and for other people. You can kind of let go of that pressure to have to feel, think, do things a certain way. When we can give ourselves space, the pressure, the stress level, the anxiety, those things come down. And we want to be able to offer that to others too. We hope that through utilizing the tools that we've shared this evening, you can work towards creating more balance and less stress for your holidays. As a reminder, if you find that stress and related feelings are not improving or they're feeling overwhelming, we encourage you to reach out to your primary care provider to discuss options. Our primary care and behavioral health team are ready to partner with you and discuss options for support. And again, that doesn't have to look like just therapy or just medication. There's a lot of options, and we can all work together to find the thing that feels like it's the best fit for you. Of course, we wish you the happiest of holidays from our IHA family, our behavioral health and primary care family, to your family. And we would love to open up this opportunity for Allison to field some questions.
Excellent. Okay. So if you would like to ask a question, again, you can type it into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It is the 2 speech bubbles, not the chat. Please don't put them in there because I might miss them, and we want to be sure to address as many questions as we can. So it looks like grief is a pretty heavy topic among our attendees tonight. There are a lot of questions around it. Let's start with one person is saying that there are strategies maybe for family members who are experiencing loss or grief during the holidays, but how can we support coworkers facing the same thing? Want to respect privacy, but I also want to reach out because they're hurting. Do you have any suggestions?
Jill, you're especially good at this, so I'm gonna let you take it.
Yeah, I think acknowledging what they're going through, what Elise had said before, acknowledge the pain that they are in, asking them what they need, right? Sometimes just listening. They might step into your office and start talking. You don't have to fix it. You can just listen. And that's the best gift that you can give.
Okay. So another attendee says that she lost both of her parents within 28 days. There are 5 siblings and some tension between the siblings. So any suggestions for how to handle family gatherings this year, since it's the first time they'll all be together since the funeral and selling of the home and some really big changes?
I love the idea of, if it's possible, I don't know, what the relationship is like at this point, but I love the idea of, even through a group text or email, checking in with each other about, what do you want this to look like? Do you want to just spend the time together? Do you want to do whatever those traditional holiday activities are? And recognizing that each of you might have a different thought or idea, and that's okay. You can work together to maybe include, kind of each person. If there's somebody that feels uncomfortable and they need to sit out or they need to do something different, also giving them the space and validation to do that, and recognizing that probably you're all at different points in your grief. This is going to be hard. It's going to be tense, and just giving some space for that. It's okay. Just let it be whatever it is.
Okay, we have another person who says that they lost their father this year, and recently their oldest child moved out. So she says it feels like a second death. There's not much desire to celebrate or shop for Christmas, gift wrap, but there are 3 children and a big extended family who are sort of counting on her. She doesn't want to do it, and she's tried meditation and can't seem to slow her mind down or really focus in. Are there any tips on how to get through that?
Jill, I was like, I don't know if you were going to unmute or if you wanted me to take that. Okay. So I think it's great that you can acknowledge that things are hard and you don't have a desire to do the things this year. One of the things that we work with folks on when we work together with folks in the primary care setting is when we're struggling to do things, and it's a lot of things, right? It feels like, how do I get on this like never ending list of the shopping, the wrapping, the planning, the cooking. And it can feel overwhelming immediately when you think of that long list and all of the things to be done. Plan one small thing each day or each week, and recognize that you might not get all of the things done. That's okay. Think about, what are the priorities, what are the things that are really important to you or your family, and how can you tackle those things in the easiest and least overwhelming way possible. And so that might mean planning the smallest piece of each task each day, making those goals really small, really achievable. And when we talk about planning, we don't just mean, saying, sometime tomorrow I'm going to get online and order that gift. That means planning the time, planning the website, where are you going to sit, how are you going to do that, all of the details. You want to make it as easy as possible to kind of get there and do the things. And you're going to do that kind of for each task on your list. Give yourself some space. You don't have to do all the things at once to make it worth having been done.
Elise, do you have thoughts on, like, if you do have a big extended family and you're sort of the host and expected to put it on for the year, is it okay to maybe reach out and say to some of the family members, I need a little help this year, and kind of enlist them to give you a hand?
Absolutely. Ask for help. You don't have to do it all by yourself. If it's overwhelming or if it's too much, you just don't have the energy. I don't care what the reason is. It's okay to ask for help and let people know, I can't do this all myself. I don't want to do this all myself. And, if other people want to participate and they can help and even ask for help with specific things if that feels better for you. Sometimes people want to help, but they don't know how to help. They don't want to offend you maybe by bringing, a pie if they think that it's really important to you that you kind of bake your own pie. Let people know how they can help and invite them to do that.
I like that. So I'm gonna try to go through some of the grief questions and then we'll move on to another topic, but there are several, so I just wanted to get through that topic while we're talking about it. So what if you have family members who are maybe in different places with their grief? So it says maybe they're in denial or some are willing to talk openly, but others are not. Do you have suggestions on how to approach that if you're in a different place than someone else in your family? So maybe you're ready to talk or maybe you're not. Is that the conversation you can have with your family?
Again, I think talking about it, right? And acknowledging people are in different places, right? And validating that and being okay when people are ready and willing to talk about it, and acknowledging that it can be difficult and some people may not be ready to go there. Don't shove it in someone's face, right? And be angry with them because they're not in the same space that you are. But giving them grace, giving yourself grace, and really sticking together, because now is the time that you need one another, and not to be sort of fighting about where people are in their grief process, right? It can be so different for every person that it can be, it can be hard to manage that. But I think if you acknowledge, hey, I see where you are, and that's okay. And I'm in this other space, and that's okay too. But really validating people's feelings, letting them know that it's okay to be in that space, take your time, maybe, offering things that helped you move forward a little. But being supportive, right? And not being upset and angry that someone isn't in the same place that you are.
And Jill, if you're in a place where you're ready to talk, but maybe another person who was close to the person you're grieving or the event that you're grieving about, I mean, it's okay to find someone outside of that circle, right? That can sort of be
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. Finding a grief support group, talking with friends, and other loved ones. Yeah, it's totally okay to reach outside of your own family to find that support as well.
Okay. And we have someone whose neighbor is in their 80s and lost her husband recently, and they're wondering how they can help. It sounds like that might be a good option for sitting or going to visit and giving the gift of time, maybe.
I think that's a great idea. Really acknowledging the person, letting them know that, hey, I see you. And this year may not be the same as last year. And I can see that you are maybe in pain and that this year is definitely different than last. But yeah, giving time, giving space, a listening ear, that can be the best gift.
So I'm definitely not trained in behavioral health, but it does seem that a breakup or a divorce could also be a form of grief around the holiday season. It's definitely a change in how you would celebrate in previous years. Do you have a suggestion on something that maybe you could do for yourself if you're in a different place in your relationship this year? Or maybe you have a holiday without your children for the first time, or you're, sharing the day. What are some things you can do to try to get through that?
Yeah. We've talked a lot about, asking others what they need or what they want. And I think this is a great opportunity to check in with yourself. What do I need on this day, right? Maybe you're spending the holiday for the first time without your kids. And, does that, like, what does that look like? What do you need? Do you need to pretend that it's not a holiday today and, do something completely different? Do you need space to kind of mourn that holiday by yourself? Do you want to watch that movie that you would normally watch by yourself? Recognizing that the traditions or the usual activities might be different, and checking in with yourself about what you need to move through that, or checking in, with the other people who are going to be involved and letting them know that you need some space, or you definitely don't want to do, this piece, and being open about that. And, again, giving yourself the grace and the space to just kind of move through that in a way that looks and feels different this year. And that's okay. Again, Jill mentioned that grief and sadness can coexist alongside joy and celebration. We can feel two ways. We don't have to just feel sad or just happy. We can feel both of those things.
There's someone in here suggested during the Thanksgiving holiday, after the loss of a loved one, they kind of spread out the duties of the Thanksgiving dinner. And then they also brought some of the person's most favorite things to the dinner, which I thought that's such a good way to, like you said, joy and sadness kind of being together. It's such a nice celebration in, when you're feeling that way. So I thought that was a nice suggestion.
Find a way to connect and honor that person. One of my daughters mentioned something about Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve at our family, and she said, Grandpa won't be there this year, but we can bring his picture down and we can set his picture at the table. And I said, I think that's a great idea, right? Finding those ways to connect and honor those memories. I love that.
Yeah, definitely. I do too. So you talked about COVID in your presentation. There's so many different aspects of COVID. You're kind of in a season where you're going to events where people may or may not be vaccinated. You might have very different views from your family members around COVID and vaccination. And you also may be grieving people who we lost during the pandemic and to COVID. Is there anything that you can say for someone who is going to an event where they have a different policy on vaccination? So maybe they're vaccinated, but at the event, no one else will be. Do you have suggestions on how they can work through that event?
So I always tell patients that the only control they have is of their own environment and their own reactions to things. And also, they have to do what's right for them. So if it's accepting an invitation to a smaller group, an outdoor event, wearing a mask, those types of things. So doing the thing that can make you most comfortable with what you're the most comfortable with. And also, it's okay to say no. Having boundaries, I'm swinging back into the boundary bit, but it's okay to say, thank you for the invitation. I'm going to decline at this time. You don't have to give an explanation, but it's okay to say no if you don't feel comfortable.
So with boundaries, I would think that those are pretty important with some of those political conversations as well. There are a couple of people who on here who dropped in questions looking for some advice when those dinner table conversations maybe get a little heated around the political climate.
I know at our dinner table, we establish some expectations, I guess, at the beginning. So generally, most folks around the table will adhere to the no political talk. It doesn't always work, I know, for families. Sometimes families and loved ones are they go there. But I think setting expectations, especially if you are inviting people into your home, you can make the rules around the dinner table. Elise, do you have anything to add?
I second that. Set up some ground rules, let people know ahead of time what is acceptable. If people still want to push that, and some people will, because that's what's valuable to them, and that's okay, just redirect the conversation, change the subject, or like gently remind them that maybe this conversation would be better, after dinner or outside or another day or time.
It seems like you could kind of type those rules out and put them on the front door. It's like you enter, you agree to these rules. I've also heard people say that they've played trivia games at the dinner table, where there's maybe a question at each plate or, something along those lines, which could be a good distraction, it sounds like to me. Okay. So there are several people asking for resources. So either grief support groups or maybe some resources for mental health for low income patients. We can definitely share some links. I assume that you guys have a few links or a few resources we could share where people could get some help in different counties and at different income levels, different options for those people. Okay, so we will share resources in the email that you'll receive in a couple days.
I want to put a plug for hospice, because hospice always offers grief support for folks in the community. It's almost always free. It is accessible to anybody in the community, so your loved one or your person doesn't have to have been through hospice. And hospice specializes in grief. That is what they do. That is their business. I will send out the links like Allison said, but I can say Arbor Hospice, specifically in Saline, kind of serving the Ann Arbor area. They offer a variety of groups and support individual and group stuff. There's lots of places to look for these things. They don't have to cost money. We are happy to give you all as many of the resources that we have.
Yeah, we will definitely share those. So I will get in touch with Elise and Jill after the presentation and be sure to include those in your email. So if you talked about, being able to say no or decline an invitation, but at what point are you maybe kind of bordering on avoidance? So you're kind of pushing yourself into isolation versus skipping because it's the best thing to do for you. Is there a way to know when you're in that position?
I think if you find that you're avoiding everything, right? It's not just one get together or one person or one event, but it's everything. You're not answering your phone. You have this feeling of, I don't actually want to see anybody or do anything. I don't want to leave the house. Those feelings that we talked about of like, nothing feels enjoyable. I'm not looking forward to any of this. Those are typically some things you might notice about yourself if you're isolating or avoiding. And again, if you notice that about yourself, reach out. If nothing else, connect with your doctor, talk about that. There's options available. You don't have to feel that way by yourself.
What if the holiday itself? So, if you maybe experience really traumatic event, I would say I typically remember the dates of those events or the season or, as they come around each year. What if Christmas Day is that day for you? The day you lost someone, the day something happened to you that's just an awful memory. How can you still have a Christmas season, but also, have that grief or experience that loss?
I think what we've been talking about, so you can, choose to acknowledge that day will be hard. You can acknowledge or change the day of your celebration if that's helpful. I think there are lots of things that you can do to minimize, I think, the stress and feelings of being overwhelmed on that day. Maybe recognizing and honoring that person on that day instead of celebrating Christmas or doing both. And acknowledge that it's hard, right? And feel the feelings.
Right, and I like that idea of, I've heard from a few of my mom friends where like they will celebrate Christmas on the 26th or the 27th and give themselves some space and not try to do everything in that one day and make it just about that day. So I like that idea as well. So this person says that they are feeling tense and having a lot of trouble with sleep and a hard time coping. It looks like they've lost both their parents and they're trying, again, it's another person trying really hard to be happy for their kids, but it is so hard when you're sort of torn up inside. And I know we talked about some suggestions for that. And then again, we would kind of go back to what you were saying about breaking things down into really simple steps. Is that your advice for this person as well?
Yeah, get some support. Sleep is a foundation. If you're not sleeping, the rest of it, kind of falls apart. Your body doesn't have everything it needs to function, to be well, to manage all of these things. And it's okay. Check in with your doctor, ask what tools are available, ask for some extra supports. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to do all of it, and you certainly don't have to do it by yourself. And so, I think sleep is a big one, that if it's more than just a few nights out of a week that you're not sleeping, if it's every night that you're getting less sleep or that your brain is just racing, that's a really good opportunity to connect with your primary care doctor and talk about how you might work together to manage that.
So that's a great segue. If you are experiencing grief or sadness or anxiety or any of those feelings, is your primary care doctor a good kind of a first stop?
Absolutely. I'm sure Joel's going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great place to start. Make an appointment with your doctor. You can do virtual visits if you can't feel like leaving the house. Yeah, and the behavioral health specialists are in many of the adult primary care offices. So if it's appropriate, they're really good at making referrals to us.
And you don't even have to call. You can go online, go on ihacares.com, use the InQuicker app, get something scheduled. If you have My Chart, you can do it that way. You can send a message to your doctor that way. I know sometimes when people feel like they want to get something directly to their doctor, they don't have the energy or they're too anxious to pick up the phone and make that call. And maybe they don't want to have to sit on hold, or they just want to do it in this moment. Use that message tool on My Charts. The doctors love that. It is an easy way for them to have access directly to their patients. There's a variety of ways to kind of get connected. We just want to make sure that that is absolutely a great first stop.
And I will say, oftentimes in speaking with people that I work with, they begin to feel better almost immediately, knowing that they have begun the process of taking care of themselves and they're doing something about it, right? They just feel this huge weight lifted, like, oh, I've said the words out loud. I've acknowledged that I'm struggling and I'm going to do something about it.
I love that. And if you are an IHA Medical Group patient and you do not have My Chart set up, there's a link on our homepage, ihacares.com, that will take you to the My Chart login and you can begin the process there. But in my experience as an IHA patient, I also think that the staffs in most of the practices that I've gone to or taken my children to have been really helpful in getting the patient portal set up. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask or to chat with someone at your next appointment to see if you can get some help setting up if you're struggling with that. Okay, there are probably 4 or 5 people who are saying they're really having a lot of trouble managing a death. So it looks like one person lost a grandson just before he turned 30 to COVID. somebody else has lost their wife or parents. So if you're going through something like that, how do you know when it's time to ask for help? What are some signs that maybe you need to talk to somebody?
So these might be things like it's impairing your functioning, right? So, we want to normalize these feelings. Of course, you're feeling sad. Of course, you're feeling down. Of course, things are hard. And if it's impairing your functioning, so if you're not able to get out of bed, if you're not able to sleep, if you're not able to eat or keep food down because you've got an upset stomach, if you are not able to go to work, or you get to work and you find that you can't function, or you're crying at work. So any of those things that we think about, like kind of our day-to-day functioning, if those things aren't happening, I think that's a really good indicator that some extra support is probably warranted or needed. And also just, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're in over your head, if you're feeling like I'm using all of my energy just to keep my head above water, ask for help. When in doubt, ask for help. If your primary care doctor thinks that you can manage this on your own and you don't need extra help, they'll let you know. That's probably not what they're going to tell you. But that it's going to be a conversation. So if you're not sure if you need help, reach out, have a conversation, connect, feel out the options, see what sounds good, and make that decision together. You don't have to figure that out by yourself.
Okay. Are you guys okay if I just ask the last couple questions? We're right at 8 o'clock, so I just want to be sure you're both okay. All right. Thank you for staying on for so many questions. We all appreciate it. I will speak for everybody on this call. So what if you have a loved one who's grieving and responds in a way that feels hateful? So maybe they're hanging up the phone on you, or not answering the door, isolating themselves, pushing people away. Do you kind of keep breaking down the door, or do you take a step back? What are some suggestions on that?
I think that can be difficult, right? Your good intention of wanting to help and support that person, but the person you're trying to help isn't maybe ready or open, or it's too painful for them to sort of accept any support, right? You can write them a letter, right? And tell them, I'm here whenever you need me, right? Just continue to let them know that you're there. And if they need to talk, you're there. That you'll just be there to listen. It can be difficult, right? But don't stop, I think, trying to connect with that person, but also not being too pushy. It's a fine line, I think. But also just letting them know that, you're there for them.
Mm-hmm. And if you have someone who's chosen not to be part of a celebration, is it appropriate maybe on the way to a family function to drop off some food item or something that maybe the person really enjoys, just to let them know that you're thinking of them during the holiday? Is that something that would be appropriate?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great gesture. And I think, I don't know, how the person will receive it. But you did what you felt was right from your heart. And hopefully that person recognizes that. It can be hard when someone's in a different space than you are.
Right. And if they're not really wanting to see people, you can do the DoorDash approach, I guess, and leave it and send them a text. Okay. So one other question we have is around travel anxiety, which I definitely get in the airport at Christmas time. Do you have suggestions? I know box breathing, I would imagine, is a good thing you can maybe do in the airport. What else can you do?
Pick a plan, stick to your plan as much as possible. Having a plan gives our thoughts some direction versus kind of this wide open space for the anxiety to tell us all of the scary things that might happen. Visualize. If you're going to an airport that if you're going to Metro and you always go to Metro, you kind of know what that process is going to be like. Visualize, think about that process going as smoothly as possible. Again, that gives some direction for your thoughts versus your thoughts going to all of the other possibilities. Do your deep breathing, one piece at a time, break it up into sections. Okay, first we're going to check our bags. The next step is getting through security. The next step is finding the gate. One piece at a time. It doesn't have to be one big task. You can break it up into sections if that feels more manageable.
Okay, one last question. So any suggestions if you have people in your family who are maybe changing traditions? So this person says they have kids who are in their 20s and they don't want to go to church on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day anymore. How do you work through that without being angry at them all day or during the holiday?
Give yourself and each other the space to do the thing that makes sense for you, and recognizing the thing that makes sense for you might not be the thing that makes sense for everyone else. And we have a term that we use often called radical acceptance. That means just like, I accept this situation. That doesn't mean I like it. That doesn't mean I'm happy about it. That doesn't mean I forgive it. But this is what it is. And this is the thing that's right for me. This is what's important to me. This is what's important to you. And we can have a connection and care for each other, and also respect that we have different ideas, and that's okay.
Okay, perfect. I think we made it through, if not all the questions, all of the themes. So hopefully your answers for maybe a similar question will be helpful to people who have kind of the same concerns for this year. Again, we will share an email in the coming days with all of the resources that were discussed tonight. We'll work together over the next day or so to make sure that we get it right and we get all of the resources that you need in the email over the weekend here. So thank you all for joining. This is such an important discussion, and I really enjoyed it personally, and I hope that it was helpful to the many people who are on the phone. And we really appreciate your time, Elise and Joy, for this important topic this time of year. So with that, we will say good night. And in any case, if you're struggling, the first stop is your primary care, if that's the case, right? And make sure that you reach out to them if you need additional support. All right, thank you both so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.